some water up here, maybe? We are. Oh, we also ordered it. Just an extra water.
There's two right there.
There's two more.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you, sir. Just showed up. Couple minutes here to get everybody inside. So let me test this, make sure it works. That's great. We're going to start in about 3 minutes. So, still got folks scrambling from other events.
That's on my ball, mostly Marine, so you don't have to explain a lot of things.
Went to Ybor City last night.
Did you really love that place?
Some calm guys.
Oh, you're all the way down in Orlando? Hey, I got a cigar in my room for you. They rolled. I'll give it to you. Because I don't smoke them anymore because of the heart attack. But at this place we were at last night, they were rolling them. Yeah, it's right down the street. Saab had this thing. I used to love Ybor. Get that Cuban food.
Huh?
Isn't that great?
Oh, yeah.
We eat some ramen yesterday. But,
When'd you get here?
Okay, ramen?
cigars.
Really? Wow, that's weird. Not used to that.
I got a bunch of Marines in SoCal, so we went to visit them. Hooked up with all the
That's cool.
Okay, terrific. Welcome. I am Jim Robb, your humble servant moderator for today's event. We have a spectacular panel put together by the Marine Corps, and I appreciate their presence here. And you know, it's been a tough year to plan. It's been a difficult time to actually get commitments from the military to come down, given all the COVID stuff. But both services on the naval side have really come forward. As you could see yesterday, we had a bang-up program with the Commandant and the CNO being there. And it's great for the training community to see that kind of support and the kind of support that we get from other generals and flag officers in the system. And you all have set up a really interesting challenge for the Air Force next year. They're already talking about how they're going to try and get this, General Raymond and General Brown to come down and do a fireside chat. And I told General Carlisle that he was going to have to do that one. Yes. But today we got a hall of heroes here. As I go through their bios, the process is I'm going to introduce them all. And then they're going to go through some opening comments. And then we'll go into a question and answer period. We have a microphone here, so that's probably the only one. If you'll have to come up and pose your question there. When we get to questions, I have a couple of requests. One, that there is a question in your statement, so there's not it's not some sort of and that you be respectful for where we are and what we're doing, and we're not trying to trick people. And I also would request that we don't try to get into some detail of a program because that's not necessarily what we need to do here. And so just try to stay at a high level, be respectful, and have a point to what you're trying to say. So with that, I'll go through the panel. First, we have Major General Julian Alford. He's the Commanding General of the Training Command. That's perfect for ITSEC kind of world. His commands include a rifle platoon commander who's in Operation Desert Shield and Desert Storm, light armored infantry Detachment Commander, Commanding Officer of the Recruiting Station at Nashville, Commanding Officer of the 3rd Battalion of the 6th Regiment. Many deployments, and so ended up with Commanding General of the Task Force Southwest, and is currently leading the training command at Quantico. So please help me welcome General Alford. Major General Renforth, Commanding General Marine Air Ground Task Force Training Command and the Marine Corps Air Ground Combat Center. So another great piece and fit for ITSEC. He enlisted in the Navy and then transferred over to the Marine Corps. Maybe the Navy was not hard enough. I don't know, but
I saw the light.
saw the light. He also served as a rifle platoon, heavy machine gun platoon, a Dragon platoon commander. He's platoon commander at the 2nd Light Armored Infantry Battalion. He was in Operation Provide Promise. Commanded rifle companies in the 1st Battalion, the 2nd Marines, and the 2nd Battalion of the 6th Marines. At the battalion level, he commanded the Maritime Special Purpose Force while deployed with the 31st MU, and later commanded the 2nd Light Armored Reconnaissance Battalion in Operation Iraqi Freedom. So again, a long list of deployed actions and leading the way. So please help me welcome General Renford. So next we have Brigadier General Basajin, who's commander of the Marine Corps Systems Command. So this is a good mix as well on systems and new combat capabilities. He was selected as commander of the SysCom in 2018 and has operated there since. His assignments as a logistician in the operating forces include platoon commander, detachment commander, company executive officer, squadron logistics officer, brigade support group, and battalion executive and commanding officer. So again, very long list of success, leading people, leading the Marines in the field. Then he's been program manager for industry combat equipment. He's also been director of Marine Corps Operational Test and Evaluation. He's a military assistant to the Secretary of Defense for acquisition in the Pentagon. And we appreciate his presence here. So please help me welcome General Basajin. Last but not least, in any way, Brigadier General Matthew Mowry, who's Assistant Deputy Commandant for Aviation, Headquarters Marine Corps, Department of Aviation. He also has a long list of combat success here. He's commanded Marine Air Group 39. He accumulated 4,200 flight hours in Navy airplanes, over 1,000 of which were flown in combat. He's held almost every attack helicopter aviation qualification and designation available. He previously commanded Marine Light Attack Helicopter Squadron 267. He was in Operation Enduring Freedom during that time. He had a tour with Marine Medium Helicopter Squadron 262. And they were also had 2 combat deployments to Iraq in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom. Particularly high-stress job was to serve as in the White House Command Pilot program in the VH-3, VH-60, and the CH-46. So that that's obviously putting a lot of pressure on him, but also shows that their confidence in his skills. So as an assignment in aviation plans, programs, and budgets, works matters he worked matters for Aviation Action Officer in Headquarters Marine Corps Department. So please help me welcome General Mowry. Okay, so with that, we're going to start opening remarks by the panel, and I'll turn it over to General Alford.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for having me here. So, training command, I'll just go real quick just to explain it. We've got a lot of Marines in the room, but so training command is at 88 locations across the United States, 20 05 commands, and 17 06 commands spread out across. We're in most of our schools are on sister services bases and stations, which is unique for the Marine Corps. We have about 7,000 permanent personnel and put through a little over 50,000 students a year. So to give you some scope of what training command does. So it's all entry level MOS training, career progression training, and advanced NCO, staff NCO, and officer MOS skills. The best way to describe it is that we do all individual training, where when Sparky he does mostly collective training, units. So that's a good distinction there. For me, the center of gravity of training command is the instructor. We put in a lot of effort into our Train the Trainer program. How do you turn an NCO, a young officer, into a great instructor, what we're calling a 21st century learning instructor? So we're working hard on that, and probably can use industry to help us with that a little bit, and I'll go through some of the things we are doing. First off, I'd say that to do the type of what we call adult learning, 21st century learning, we've made some significant changes. So there's very few schools that are still teaching 1 over 250, 300 students. Right? For instance, at our 2 infantry schools, for our entry-level infantrymen, which was called Infantry Marine Course, we got an NCO instructor with 14 students, 14 Marines that are going through the 14-week course. And that NCO, that corporal or sergeant, goes through the whole 14 weeks with those 14 students. That's made a huge difference on the outcome of that young Marine being an infantryman. We're already seeing the fruits of that. We're doing that across most of our schools. I got Joe Broom sitting here. He's got comm school in 29 Palms, our largest schoolhouse in the Marine Corps. And he's doing the same thing, fire team, squad level instruction. But that's expensive. It costs a lot of Marines from the fleet to do that kind of instruction. So we're looking for ways to enhance that, making it, the classrooms are also an issue, right? Most of our structures are built for 1 over 250, 300 classrooms, and what we really need is small rooms, and we do a lot of stuff outdoors, vice in the classroom, and I'll talk a little bit about that. One of the big initiatives, and we're going to get it this year, is Wi-Fi. It's as simple as Wi-Fi. Every student shows up with a device. I mean, for an 18 to 22-year-old, their phone is like air. You got to have it, right? So we're taking advantage of that. Wi-Fi in all of our buildings, all of our classrooms, and most importantly, Wi-Fi in the barracks. And then devices that we're giving students when they show up, tablets. But most of what I've been observing over the last 5 months I've been in command is students are doing this on their personal phones, as long as they got the connection. A lot of self-study with accountability. Accountability is nothing more than quizzes that they take on their phones, where we can do more hands-on. Because most of these Marines join the Marine Corps to do something, to touch things, to work, to have hands-on. They don't like sitting in the classroom. Otherwise, they would have went to college. right? They join the Marine Corps to do things. That's what we find when you talk to them, right? And a lot of them say, I'll go to college after the Marine Corps. But that's not what I wanted to do in my life right now. So how do you take advantage of that? It's what we're trying to do. And we hadn't done a good job of that in the past. So that's the shift we've made over the last year or so. I'll talk a little bit about the focus. So with the Commandant's focus on Expeditionary Advanced Base Ops, I was asked to come up and take training command and begin with revamping the infantry. So, you know, like I said, I got 1706 commands, all your aviation, entry-level aviation and all. So I started going around to the different schools, and you go down to Pensacola, and every student gets a tablet, every student gets goggles. You know, they can do the chair flying like we heard about yesterday, but much different than just a plunger between your legs, right? And looking at all the different devices, the simulators that they have at aviation, way out has paced what we're doing for our infantrymen. So we've got to change. We're changing that. So some examples that we're really focused on for infantry training is infantry immersion trainer, right? That is a immersive trainer, and some of the other schools are picking up on it, like comm school, right? Where the Marine is under stress, having to operate, for instance, with comm school, touch his radio, work his radio, take it apart, put it back together, while all under stress. Loud explosions, lights going on and off, having to do it in the dark with headlamps and so forth. So we're doing that with our infantry too, and we're building. We got 2 on the East Coast and 1 on the West Coast, and so that's something that we'll continue to ping industry on to help us with making it more realistic. So the first time that a Marine goes into combat should not be the first time they go to combat, because when you go down to flight school, before a pilot ever gets in an airplane, takes off with an airplane, lands an airplane, drops a bomb with an airplane, they do what multiple times? Simulation. So we owe that to our young frontline troops, infantrymen, to do the same thing, particularly if we're going to do EABO, Expeditionary Advanced Base Ops, with small teams, squads, platoons, companies, spread out, not mutually supporting. That's a different Marine Corps than we have today. That's going to take a different young Marine. It's going to have to be stronger, faster, smarter, probably older over time. We're trying to figure that out. Things like the force-on-force, using the ITSEC system. Trackless robotic targets. Every bad guy I've shot at in my life was usually running. He wasn't popping up out of a hole and back down into a hole, like many of our ranges are built. So we're changing that. As I walk around the floor yesterday, a lot of what we kind of call gunfighter gym type technologies are out there. We need more of that. We got to get the Marine shooting his weapon, interactive, under stress, scenario based. So we're working hard to do that. I also go down to flight school and out to our amphibious assault vehicle school. And every Marine, every pilot, every crew chief has to pass a swim test. Has to pass the dunker. So every Marine out at amphibious assault school has to be an intermediate level swimmer and pass a dunker. So I asked myself, why are our infantrymen, the ones who ride in the back of those helicopters and in those AAVs, not doing the same thing? So we've changed that. We've brought that back. Over the last 20 years, we've gotten away from being in the water. And as Marines, we got to get back to it. So every lieutenant has to be an intermediate level swimmer and go through the sweat chair, which is the shallow water egress trainer. Every enlisted infantryman now, with some standards, has to be an intermediate level swimmer, and the infantry officer has to be an advanced level swimmer in order to be an infantryman. We're putting some standards on our enlisted infantry. So the basic guidance I gave to my 2 commanders that run the 2 SOIs, School of Infantries, is make our enlisted infantry closer to our infantry officers. So, first class PFT, pass the obstacle course, intermediate level swim, an endurance course, number of hikes, and so forth. So we've never really done that before, but that's going to be a big change as we move forward and try to put together this force for 2030 and the missions that we're going to have to do as a Corps. The last thing I'll say is our commandant uses words like our infantry has to be more ranger-like or commando-like. So our team, we went down 2 weeks ago and spent 3 days with the 75th Ranger Regiment. And a lot of lessons learned that we can incorporate in how we make Marines. So with that, I'm looking forward to your questions. Anything you got across what I do here at Training Command, I'll be willing to answer. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have about 8, 9 seats up here. So there are a lot of folks standing. So I'll take a minute here and see if we can find anybody
Hey,
want to.
Lou, sit down. You come up here and sit down. See this guy here? Everybody thinks he's my brother all the time. See him?
Anyway,
Yeah, that's right.
we try to do COVID spacing and things, but you know, whatever you're comfortable with is fine with me. Okay, we'd like to turn it over now to General Renford.
Okay, hello everybody. I'm Sparky Renforth. I know it says Austin here. I don't think I've ever been called that in my life by any human, including my parents. So Sparky Renforth. Hey, I'll say a couple. I do have some prepared comments. You know, I'll say it real quick, and then I'll just talk about a few things. Lucky enough to have here some of my commanders as well. I have the Marine Corps Logistics Group Commander, McLaug here, and also Mountain Warfare Training Center here, and the future Mountain Warfare Training Center is here as well. And he's also my 3. So those of you who don't know about the Marine Corps Air Ground Task Force, Training Command, I'll just go over a few things. I see a lot of Marines out here, so you probably know mostly about it. But there's been quite a few changes, okay, and quite a few changes that our tribe doesn't necessarily know. So along with MCTOG, our tactics operations group, and our logistics operations group, we also have MOTS, the Marine Corps Weapons and Tactics Squadron. We also have TTECG, which everybody's normally familiar with, which is our tactical training exercise, not evaluation, exercise control group. And we also have MAGTF Staff Training Plan, MSTP, that trains up to the MEFs. Okay, we also have Expeditionary Warfare Training Groups, Pacific and Atlantic, that used to fall under Training Command, now falls under MAGTF TC, so we can have everything under one training. Yeah, completely. So together we provide advanced individual and collective training ranging from the individual warfighter up to the division level, MEF level staff across all elements of the MAGTF. For the past 20 years, the training environment we've created at 29 Palms has done an outstanding job of replicating the operational environment for which Marines prepared to fight it. As competitors' capabilities have evolved and the Marines refocus on pacing threat in the Indo-Pacific, we at MAGTF TC are focused on ensuring the training environment keeps pace with the operational environment which Marines may potentially face in future conflict. As the service's premier live fire training venue, we have expanded our training focus to address gaps in our previous training environment with the development of the force-on-force exercise called the MAGTF Warfighting Exercise, or the MWX. This exercise allows Marines to adapt to a thinking enemy in a challenging environment where the adversary force is equipped with capabilities more consistent with a pacing threat. Additionally, out in 29 Palms, we conduct war games to help identify challenges commanders may face with conducting operations under future operating concepts. However, as we continue to innovate and adapt our training designed to meet these challenges, we also recognize the necessity for simulations to enhance and influence the training environment necessary to meet our training objectives. While live training is the gold standard, Moving forward, we can't replicate everything in the live environment, and we'll certainly rely on virtual and constructive systems to supplement. Even with 1,184 square miles, things like electronic warfare, long-range precision fires, counter UAS, counter small UAS, operating in an information environment, etc., can create unique challenges for us out in the training area. With the upcoming fielding of the Marine Corps Force-on-Force Training System next, and the establishment of the LVC-TE, our increased integration of virtual and constructive simulation will further stimulate commanders and small unit leaders with a more immersive environment, which will ultimately prepare Marines for combat, further inform Force Design 2030 initiatives, and validate future concepts. And one of the things we say about Force Design 2030, that's not an end state. You got to get 2030 out of your head. You know, really it's a concept, and we're in it now. So I wrote this thing down a while back, and I threw it around my staff because I'm trying to get my arms around some of the things that we're doing, because we struggle with 29 Palms with the here and now and the future, because we still have weapon systems that we have to fight today with. So we're carefully balancing the requirement to fight now with the MAGTFs we currently have, while also designing or supporting exercises that will inform the organization, development of doctrine, and capabilities that MAGTF will need in the future. So we have a full plate out there with all these things we need to do, and we need help. We need help. It's one of the only places in the nation, certainly, where we own everything, which is why it's such a great place to come and train. We don't have to say mother may I for anything. We have all the aviation, we have the air, we have three-dimensional. You know, ground, I don't have to ask the Army for help. I don't have to ask the Navy for help. I would like to have some water out there. That'd be pretty nice. Okay?
Lake Bandini.
Lake Bandini smells like a bad thing, but it's, but come on out. You know, the fishing's good. Depending on what you're fishing for, I guess. The thing with it, as we work for the MLR and the MLR Next, you know, Marine Littoral Regiment, we're working on providing a training venue out there, but the one piece that we are missing is from the sea. And as we look at our other bases like Bridgeport, we have San Clemente Island, we have all these other places that we can work from. We need the connecting files. We need to work through all that. And then the major pacing item, and this is almost blasphemous as an infantry person saying this, we can't go anywhere without really unpacking the logistics piece of this. You know, we tend to fairy dust that all the time. And if you guys in the virtual world could figure out a way to really play that right without taking away some of the training objectives that we still have to meet while we have a captive audience out there, then I'm all in on whatever system you have for that. Because that's the one piece that's going to slow us down. The other piece, too, is when I talk about the multi-domain environment. We have to get on board with the Joint Force, and we all have to come together with our lexicon of what we're calling this thing in the operating in the information environment. Is it MDO? Is it OIE? Is it elements of OIE? I think we screw up the words all the time. But really, generating combat power without domain superiority is changing behaviors of the way we do things in the Marine Corps right now. We're worried about our signature. You should come out and watch these force-on-force exercises. It's not the Marine Corps you would understand anymore. You can't even see where the units are at. There's no more, you know, just frontal assaults like it used to be. It is a thinking enemy, and what I'm trying to work is a way to make this even more efficient, where I don't have to create the paints myself, where our coyotes don't have to falsely say you're now receiving this indirect fire, or this aviation platform is being hit by, you know, anti-air defense. We should have systems that talk to each other to where we could just push a button and that's happening. That way it's just not, you know, objective to where, you know, some person can just be, you know, arbitrarily saying, hey, you're getting gassed right now, or you're getting indirect fire. That's what drives you crazy in these scenarios. We should be better than this. The Army's got some great systems. You know, I even think that they're sort of antiquated. I think they're out there. And I'm walking around this platform now, and I'm seeing some of these things, but we could even make them better. So that's our challenge. I look forward to answering any of your questions. Thank you.
Hey, good morning, everyone. My placard also says, Arthur, but there is someone who calls me Arthur. It's my mom. So I hope nobody else in this room calls me Arthur. But I go by AJ, and it's a pleasure to be with you here today. I'm excited to talk about some of the stuff that I think is relevant to what you heard both of the journals to my left say already. But Marine Corps Systems Command is as unique as the Marine Corps itself. The advantage, I spent a good part of the day yesterday at SOCOM at Tampa, and what I will tell you is what I tell anyone else. Marine Corps Systems Command advantage is a Marine Corps' advantage, and that's our culture. Our culture is unique. It's what drives us to success and successful outcomes. How that plays out is in the Marine Air Ground Task Force, what you've heard about today. And organically, we're the only service who has one acquisition command, one organic PEO, and we are aligned to that MAGTAF. It's what makes us unique. So my response to the generals to my left is we see it all. We see the aviation combat element and all the training systems that employs, all the ground combat equipment and training, along with the logistics element, and coalesced and commanded by the command element. So that's how we're aligned at Systems Command, and that's what makes us, I think, unique and responsive to the warfighter's needs that you just heard about. That's what represents, in my mind, is the most solemn mission. It's a moral high ground, and it keeps you really sharp and focused on the mission at hand. In a lot of ways, what we're doing right now with Force Design 2030 is sometimes confused. General Renfield talked about it a little bit. I'm often asked, is it a noun or is it a verb? And what I'll tell you is Force Design 2030 is a verb. It's a very analytically and disciplined way about getting our Marine Corps to where we think it needs to be at around the 2030 timeframe. So it's a journey. It's disciplined, like we are disciplined. We're doing our very best to make informed decisions along the way. 2023 is a marker our commandant put out there for an initial capability for that Marine Littoral Regiment, and we're moving. We're actually doing really well in some areas. Long-range fires, electronic warfare, electronic attack, large-scale force-on-force formations where we're doing the training and developing the systems to support that. One thing that we need to do and we need to focus on as we get there, I think, through all of this, is the individual Marine. So what have we done there? The answer is quite a lot. In the last 18 months or so, maybe 24 months, we fundamentally procured and are employing a new round, a new 5.56 round, the Enhanced Performance Round. That's distributed Marine Corps wide. The rifle is pure fleeted amongst all of the United States Marine infantry. It's the M27 infantry automatic rifle. That is pure fleeted across the entire infantry. Along with that, optics, suppressors, squad bino NVGs, the personal protective equipment like the body armor, the plates themselves, and I can go on and on and on. That stuff is not waiting for 2023. It's not waiting for any initial operational capability of an MLR. It's available tonight. Fight tonight, ready to go on this 1st December 2021. So that's really important because no matter where we go with force design, modernization has to be perpetual. It's got to be better today than it was yesterday, and better yet tomorrow. Again, not waiting for 2030 and what's coming along the way, but ready tonight. So that's something that's at my focus day to day. That's the stuff that keeps us up at night. In the audience, we have our commander for Marine Corps Training Systems, Colonel Lou Lara, sitting here up front. I know he's been walking the floor. His entire program management office is walking the halls here at the conference So please, get to meet them and shake hands. There are many subordinate commanders at the command who are looking at new ways of employing training organic to the platform itself, like we heard our commandant talk about yesterday. And that's at the peak of our attention as we develop these new weapon systems today, but also in a way that they harmonize with the Fight Tonight gear that's ready for tonight's force and readiness. So I look forward to taking your questions. I look forward to taking a different slant at it through the acquisition lens. A lot of good things have happened in the law that have enabled us to go a whole lot faster, and we're really doing that with the new emphasis that's been placed on training and education, and we're really grateful for that and Team Quantico as we work our way towards the future. So thanks for having me here today. Look forward to taking your questions.
Okay, I guess I'm up.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thanks for the introduction, Admiral Rob, and thanks to all the folks at ITSEC for putting this together today. I'm Brigadier General Matt Mowry. I go by Rush as my call sign, so that's what I answer to. It feels like I'm preaching to the choir up here because I see so many Marines in the audience, but I will tell you just a little bit of the perspective that I'm going to take to this panel. So I'm here basically representing my boss, who's Lieutenant General Not So Wise. He's the Senior Marine Aviation Advisor to the Commandant and as a Deputy Commandant. So my boss and I are basically the Marine representatives to the Naval Aviation Enterprise. So everything that AJ talked about, kind of his world is the green dollars that the Marine Corps gets to spend every year. So the world that I live in is the blue dollars, which is basically to support all things marine aviation. Also what he does, we don't do requirements, but what we do is we take that requirement that's generated by Deputy Commandant for CD&I, and we turn that into reality. And once we get a program that's going to meet that requirement, then we do life cycle management of that across the life of the program. One of the things that's really changed in the hallway since the Commandant came out with his planning guidance in Force Design 2030 is we've really gotten away from talking about platforms in aviation. And we're much more focused now on the capability that platform represents. So whereas in years past we were very focused on something like the F-18 and making sure that the F-18 is keeping pace with the threat, we now look at that more as a placeholder for that capability. And once a program or a platform no longer meets the requirement or the need, then we're moving on to something else. And we're looking at that right now in the hallway is kind of what is the future. Specifically for training, I would say over the last several years we've done a lot right. Even before the planning guidance came out, we were making a lot of gains in our number and the quality of our sims, especially for our pilots. Really, in the last 10 years, we've almost tripled the number of simulators. We've now started to put a lot of attention on more simulators for our maintainers and for our crew chiefs and our air crew. It was mentioned earlier, I think by General Alford, why do our young Marines come in the Marine Corps? They want to get hands-on. They want to get reps and sets at what their specialty is. So a lot of what industry has provided us, and I encourage you to keep digging into that, is ways to get those reps and sets for our trainers especially. So that's one of the areas that we're looking at. I think another thing that we've done well is investing in making sure that all of our systems are networked. So we just let a pretty big contract to get where we had 3rd and 2nd MAW, kind of our East and West Coast Marine Corps, already able to get in sims, basically fly formation with each other across the coast. We've now expanded that capability to our folks out in Japan, and just as important to our reserve folks. So we've been doing a lot right. However, I think we've also, when the Commandant came out with this planning guidance, we realized that we were doing some things wrong, and we were not keeping pace with our Commandant on where he wanted to go. So what I call our challenges, but really it's kind of our focus for the next few POM cycles, is interoperability, So although I think, again, we've been doing pretty well with it for our pilots and for the ACE, we've got to get more interoperable with the ground side. So, you know, we should be able to have pilots in the air or in a sim that are, you know, executing the same mission with their ground brothers and sisters, and a realistic environment that they can really go against a peer threat. I think the other area is the deployability. One of the things the Commandant really, his vision, and we've mentioned it before, is the distributed operations, the EABO. We've got to be able to take those same very high quality training systems and get them out distributed, ruggedize them, make them able to operate in a very small footprint out in the forward lines, to be able to keep pace. You know, to fight a peer threat, you've got to be able to train to that all the time, not just once a year at some of the larger training venues. So that's kind of the lens that I would bring to any of your questions. I look forward to your questions, and I'll turn it over to the panel, the moderator.
Okay, so we're, so we have a microphone in the center of the room. We could also, I think the acoustics in here will allow people to stand up, identify themselves in place, and then ask a question. So do we have any questions? Raise your hand. If you don't have a question, I will have to create my own questions, which I have already done, but I think yours are better than mine. Okay, with that, okay, go ahead.
Gentlemen, good morning. Captain Moran, M&S Officer for 9TAP Staff Training Program. With the recent release of talent management, how do you foresee shifting that training paradigm, seeing as the Commandant wants to shift from high throughput of young Marines to retaining a more mature force?
That'd probably be in your line.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna have to change the manpower model to start with. I mean, so how do you do that? I mean, so just ideas being thrown around. First thing, we always have just re-enlisted 25%. So 35,000 Marines come in every year, and we keep 1 out of 4 of those at the end of 4 years. So do we shift that to 33%? 1 out of every 3 to start with, right? To begin to age the force. Our new infantry force has a sergeant as a fire team leader and a staff sergeant as a squad leader, right? So how are we going to do that? That's an older force. And then as you move across, you know, we've been working hard over the last 10 years on this, our squad leader development program, you know, professional squad leader in the infantry. And then I remember both General Dunford and General Neller asking, how do we do that in the other? What does that look like in the comm field? Is that a gunny? Is that a master sergeant? What does that look like in aviation, right? What is that? In the infantry, it was always that sergeant. But now we've shifted to it being the staff sergeant in the infantry as the primary Marine who will make things happen on the battlefield. So there's some ideas about nobody comes in as an infantryman. At 2-year mark, you can apply to be an infantryman. Then you go to Infantry Marine course. You get a bonus when you graduate, and you're automatic corporal. So everybody in the grunts would be a corporal and above. So, I mean, that's Scales on War. His is a 4-year program, right? You don't, if you've read that book, General Scales' book. So ideas like that, Marines like you need to start writing about it, putting your ideas out there. That's what the Gazette is for. We need help, right? The Commandant needs help, right? That's, and his talent management paper that he put out is just ideas. And changing the system is not going to be easy. So we need all the Marines to get involved with this, with ideas on how to do it.
I could do a follow-up on that too,
Sure.
if I could. So I of course absolutely agree with everything General Alford said. I will say in aviation side, we have a little bit of a different challenge, right? And that is we bring young Marines in, 19, 20 years old. We take you know, a long time to really train them. Take the F-35. You know, we're training 20-year-olds to work on 5th-gen aircraft, yet we're still using the model of when they were working on Vietnam-era Hueys and CH-46s. So we have to change that paradigm, and when you talk to those young Marines about what would incentivize them to stay, a lot of what I've heard from young enlisted maintainers is they don't feel like they're getting the professional training that their counterparts would get on the outside. So what we're trying to do is find more and more ways to get them, you know, they have to do their Marine Corps PME, but we don't put that same emphasis on getting them, you know, getting that Marine out of a squadron, say, for 3 or 4 weeks, and sending them off to some world-class training opportunity to learn how to work on aircraft, especially when we get into, again, these very technologically advanced systems that we're procuring. So I think that's another part where we can use industry's help is, again, how to make sure our young Marines are getting the training that they deserve. And I'll tell you, it's great for morale when a Marine feels like he's being taken care of like that.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
This is for any of you gentlemen. Scott Tillmans with ABSI Aerospace and Defense, one of Sparky's kids, class of 2000. So, gentlemen, the function and role of test and evaluation. We heard some discussion about that yesterday. How do you see that could be brought into training or any of these levels of work, conceptual workings that you talked about today? Love to hear your answers.
That's you, AJ.
Yeah, I can definitely start there. So, you know, what comes out of operational test are 3 basic report elements. One is operational effectiveness, and that's how effective you're doing against your requirements and your operational issues. The suitability, which is really all about the ilities and sustainability, reliability, maintainability, the ability for that particular system, weapon system or otherwise, like General Redforth said, to sustain. And that's kind of a big deal. Persisting is you know, in the EABO and for a stand-in force is actually remarkably important. And then you get your operational survivability you know, rating. That's largely having to do with information assurance, mission assurance, and you know, cyber security. So the training element is covered specifically under suitability and how a program is evaluated against things like new equipment training or the persistent and sustained training through its life cycle. I think it's aided specifically by a change in the law and the NDAA in 2019 that aligned that sustainment function to the acquisition and sustainment law, and that enabled the Marine Corps to streamline how we view both force sustainment, which we've heard a lot about today, and then the system sustainment that I'm talking about right now. So that's really made it pretty clear for us in how we do that between Deputy Commandant for Installation Logistics and what we do for a living at Marine Corps Systems Command and our affiliated BOs. So I hope that answers your question. It's really, really important that we evaluate that with, no kidding, real live Marine operators, whether we're talking about digital air-ground interoperability, like you heard General Mowry talk about, or you know, something organic to the ground element or otherwise. So I appreciate that question.
All right. We have a hand over in the corner.
Hi, Megan Eckstein with Defense News. A few of you alluded to this, but I wonder, as you look at expeditionary advanced base operations, how does your training need to evolve to keep up with that way of operating? And do you have the tools that you need right now to make those changes, or is there something specific you need from industry that way you can start training appropriately for that concept?
I could probably get in some of this. Yeah, thanks for the question. So a couple things with that too. And this is where I want to get into what we focus on at, you know, when we do the force on force. A lot of things we focus on, but the main thing I try to put on people is making good decisions. Okay, it really comes down to commander's decisions. And have we really put the commander in a position to where that commander feels comfortable making these decisions? So as we're getting all these new systems that are coming into place, and they're great, okay, these systems are great, but we got to get our commanders comfortable with these systems to where they have confidence in these systems, to where we can utilize all the information that comes from these systems, and then make decisions based on these, okay? And that's harder than you think, because what I'm watching and what we're seeing happening is they'll just revert back to their common fundamentals and remove themselves from the chaos and just make a decision based on what they know and what they're comfortable with. And we got to do better than that. So really, to really get after your question, I think the network piece is a big piece. We have that 1,180 square miles there. It's big. We talk about the 5G network that we're looking at that they say is coming, but I don't believe it. And that would be a game changer for us across there with the appropriate towers. Also with the sims that we're having, put in there where we can actually, I could have, as the exercise control, have an iPad to know where every human is at on my desert floor, and then make decisions based on that, and then even put simulations in there, and cause the commander to be in a dilemma at that point and make a decision, from there. So we need to really create an environment out there that is state of the art, to where right after it happens, I could put an NFL playback up there and go, look at this. And they're saying, hey, sir, that was a great attack. I'm like, not so fast, like Lee Corso does. And then bring it back and show them where everybody was at. And then what we're doing with after actions, what we're trying to do now, because we do have some drones that we put up there and we show them what they were doing. We actually put that up in a small commander's forum and say, see this? What were you thinking there? Not to put them in a place where they feel bad, because we tell them, the only thing we want you to do when you come to 29 Palms is leave better. Okay, so everybody comes with a good attitude. You check your egos at the door and you come in and you just want to leave better. So they're okay with that, being called out. And they're being called out really in front of some of their own commanders. And these guys, I'm telling you, and gals that are up there, do a great job of just being humble, and trying to learn. And they go, well, I don't know what I was thinking there. I really thought the enemy was doing this. Well, we say, well, look at this system. You had all this information. Why didn't you use it? I didn't have faith in that system, is what they say. So these are all indicators to me that we have to educate, our commanders. We have to educate the Marine Corps on doing all this stuff so we can make better decisions. Okay, in any way we can create that out in 29 Palms, I'm all for it.
I say a little bit outside of the training command lane, but over the years we've been evolving to do EABO. Back when me and Sparky were company commanders, we were in Okinawa. Our whole battalion went to Korea. You went as a battalion. Everything was as a battalion, and we're changing that right now. The company's a base effort, right? We got to be willing to send a platoon to the Philippines, a platoon to Thailand, Indonesia, Vietnam. And be more distributed. That takes a different force than we have today, like we're talking about. And the training that we have to do to be able to do that as a force, we're trying to figure out. War games, tactical decision games, decision games, and multiple iterations of that, sets and reps, that you can take that young lieutenant and staff sergeant and deploy for 6 weeks on their own. That's what we have to do across the world, off of Muse. Muse, we've got to be willing to break up and go ashore in different places. And how do you get different countries to invite us in is what we got to be thinking about and working on. But that is the concept of EABO. The inside force.
Go ahead. Hey, can I throw in one more thing? So real world command and control systems with simulated real world effects against them, okay, is the best way I can say that. Because what we are doing now is we're trying to create a pacing threat on a shoestring. Okay, we're sort of, we know what the pacing threat looks like. We know what effects they can put on our command and control systems. But then what we're doing is getting surrogates. And we're contracting surrogates out there out of our own pocket to create what we think it's going to look like. And I think we're doing an okay job. And that shouldn't be good enough. we can do much better.
So one thing I want to add to that, Megan, is, and this is a great question. Thank you for asking it. General Mowry he made a reference that I think is really important here. You know, we've gotten away from the platform and instead focusing on the capability. In my world, that translates into a word like program. What makes a capability or a program successful are two really important vectors, variables, that are directly proportional to the successful outcome of that capability or program. And that's a mature and stable requirement, and how well we know that, and how well we resource that. So on both of those counts, what I'll tell you about force on force, free play, interactive, using real live, data from human beings that generating that, both from an adversarial force and with Blue, in a networked manner, using a captured and networked after action to provide instant feedback to those gunfighters, is being invested in as we sit here today. I'm really proud to report that. And through the live virtual.
Can I see it?
Yes, sir, you will. Live virtual constructed. But we haven't been doing that. We have not been doing that. So it's actually incredibly refreshing to see that, what you hear the commandants say is, I think force design is going well. We're making great progress. I'm good. The two areas that I want to concentrate on are talent management, which the skipper talked about here, and then training and education. And so now you're seeing, as a result of that, his emphasis is we are making the investments, we're putting the resources, and we're really drilling down into the requirements for these programs. And they've matured to the point where, we're underway, we're engaged, and we're executing. So I'm really proud to say that, because it's been far too long that we haven't been.
I'll round it off. So Megan, you hit something obviously that's important to all of us, because we're all chomping at the bit to say something about this. And one of the common themes that I'm going to say, that everybody else said too, is we're going to have to be able to train like we fight. And part of that means we're going to, to operate as the ABO, it's all about that network, right? It's getting information at the right place, at the right time, in a usable fashion, so we can make decisions at the lowest level. Okay, well, that's easy to say, hard to do, and even harder to train to, because those same systems I'm going to need to fight that fight, I'm going to need to be able to train on them. And so one thing that we are focused on the aviation side specifically is a overused term right now, but it's very true, and that's the open architecture on everything that we're buying, we're looking for, because what we talk, everything that got us success in the past 20 years is not going to work in the future. And systems that we operated for 20 years, we can't do that anymore, because technology is changing, the enemy is changing. If we're going to keep pace with that, we've got to be able to take a platform or a system, be able to update that on the fly as needed, and then the minute that it is no longer keeping pace, we need to be able to take that technology and keep it moving in something else, right? So, I see a lot of Marines here, and I see a lot of Marines who are now wearing suits. So I'm talking to a lot of my Marine industry partners, we can't deal with the priority issues we dealt with in the past, right? We have to be able to have one very smart company make us something, but then other companies be able to, make that system even better over the life cycle of it. So, and I know that's what a lot of our partners are focused on, and we need to keep moving in that direction.
We might as well keep running with this, okay? Because Rush is exactly right. Because here's the problem we have a lot of times. There's training gaps. So we'll procure something. We'll say, okay, this is a good program. In 2025, we're going to have it. Well, what do we do in the interim? Okay? And by the time 2025 comes around and we get this thing, it's outdated. Okay? But we're already sunk into it. We're already bought into it. So we have to be more agile if we're going to keep up with technology. And these training gaps that we constantly have, I'll give you, for instance, is our UASs. We have a great program right now where we're going to have MQ-9s, what is it, 2025? Is that what it is, AJ? I don't know what, about that. Well, how do we train the MAGTAP between now and 2025 with a like UAS? I end up renting it, is what I do. I contract it out. But then you know how expensive that is? And then I gotta go back and get on bended knee and ask the commandant for more money so we could train the force to have a system that we should already have, okay, or should already be budgeted for 2025. You know what I mean? So that's the struggle we have with systems like that. But Rush hit on the head. You know, by the time we get it, it's outdated, and then what? Then we gotta go back and recompete, you know? That just doesn't make sense.
Lou Johnski, I'm with Red Hat, but is anybody in here from the Cyber Bikes Foundation? Okay, I know AJ knows exactly where I'm going with this, but right outside of Quantico is the Cyber Bikes Foundation, Quantico Cyber Hub. You're talking about the technology and the capability. So what's there is that it's a 501c3 nonprofit organization that's building out industry's capability around 5G, cyber, AI, ML, open source type stuff, DevSecOps, automation, all kinds of things. And industry is playing there and putting effort, money, and smart people in that building on a regular basis. And we invite all industry, we invite all, and I don't represent the Cyber Bikes Foundation, I'm just a partner, okay? I just want to make it clear. They have a booth here that you could go by and see them and talk to Matt Weaver, talk to a couple other folks that are there. But what we're trying to do there is find the art of the possible and allow you to say, this is what we would like to see, a capability we would like to build, industry, what can you do? And then the nonprofit organization brings the for-profit companies together, decides whether they want to bring some resources to build something for Navy, Marine Corps, police officers, it doesn't matter, right? There's training in that building for up-and-comers. We do training, Red Hat does training in that building. All sorts of things are happening there. That's a resource that should be overutilized by the Marine Corps.
They have a skiff.
When we have a skiff, the skiff is being built now. So they have a 30,000 square foot building now. They're just broke ground on a 90,000 square foot building with more capabilities. So this is just the beginning of it. The vision of the organization there, I would commend that vision because they're actually putting it to work. I know AJ's been there several times. I've seen him there a lot. From a training perspective, I've had General Imes there for a walkthrough. So there's a lot to do there. So the smart guys that are talking about capabilities around technology, you come over and bring the idea, industry will try to do their best to build something at no cost, right, to the Marine Corps. And then if it's something that works well, there are contract vehicles, CRADAs and other things that can then build it out and do some things through ATOs and other things. So just a comment, just making it there. Any other questions, let me know.
There's even beer in the building.
There's beer.
Oh, shit, I'm
All the more reason to go.
And bourbon too. Just
No.
Okay.
Thank you for the comment. I think the back right corner. No, yep, you're good.
Gentlemen, good morning. I have a question with respect to the discussion of requirements, training gaps, and General Basajin's term of translating it into programs. How frequently, or how would you venture to guess how many requests for information or RFIs to industry we could expect to see published to articulate these training gaps to solicit those ideas from industry? Because one of the challenges is unsolicited white papers often get acknowledged with, thank you for submitting, but we have no articulated requirements. So the RFIs and how frequently those are published, where they're published, is of great interest to me. Thank you.
I can start it,
You
gentlemen,
start
if that's
and
okay.
finish it.
So, Walt, thanks for the question. You know, the COVID pandemic is obviously been had a global impact on us all, and you know we've done 2 modern day Marines in a virtual setting. So, like the Admiral said at the onset, it's really good to be here face to face, and you know we've all sort of felt the impact of it. The advanced program planning briefs to industry, the APBIs that are typical, textbook interaction with industry can happen in one of 3 ways. 1, ad hoc. If something pops up tomorrow, there's a capability gap, we'll issue an RFI, and it'll be out there, asynchronous, but aligned synchronously to the need. Two, we do our, Team Orlando has a lot of work that Lou does here, localized to the Team Orlando area as our commander for training systems explicitly. Three, when we conduct a modern day Marine, we've now also aligned an advanced planning brief to industry that goes across the command, across every one of those commodities. Those have been very positively met when we deal with the industry, and it's been a very practical way, a tactile way for industry to interact with the Marine Corps at an event like the Modern Day Marine Military and Expo. So the other thing I'll tell you is, if anybody comes in and says, "Hey, I need to talk to you about X," we have never turned, I haven't ever turned a meeting down. So if I personally can't attend that meeting because the schedule's whatever, we'll either kick it to the right or send a designated representative in. Because I'm committed not to just say, here's one of those letters that says, "Thanks for your interest in national defense." We shall leave no stone unturned, is my quick answer to you. And I'm committed to that. I haven't turned any one of those down, and I'm not gonna start now, in my 4th year of command. So thanks for the question. I hope it helps answer you a little bit.
Sure, gentlemen. A quick question. There's human performance was one of the things that was talked about yesterday by several senior leaders. I feel like we've got a pretty massive gap in the Marine Corps. We've got the Human Performance Office, I think is what we're calling it right now. It's in Training and Education Command. Sir, the way you describe what we need from our Marines, the Infantry Marine Corps, I think is a great step in the right directions. But biometrics, the gunfighter gym, the ability to be able to figure out how people are under stress, that kind of stuff. Like, I feel like there's a gap inside the Marine Corps, and the industry can definitely help us to be able to kind of link these things together, where PFC Alford comes in the Marine Corps, right, was a high school football player or whatever, right, that you get measurements him. We have things like Sparta plates and that kind of stuff. You get your biometric that everybody buys on their own right now, the Phoenix 5 or Phoenix 6, right, that everybody pays $800 out of their own pockets. That a squad leader should have a pad to be able to check things. Sir, as it comes to collective skills training, you have the ability to be able to talk about some of the decision making that you're making and how they work under stress. I feel like we're just on our ass, quite honestly, as a service, and trying to pull this together, as opposed to 3 or 4 dudes that are in TCOM that are buried underneath one of the directorates in there, and there's no real direct line. It used to be with Commandant for Jill and Eller, but if anyone has any thoughts on that or anything we're trying to do along that line of effort.
Yeah, I went down to the Ranger Regiment 2 weeks ago, and they do exactly that. Right? We're talking about 3,500 by, the numbers that we have. Next week, we're going up to Boston to the Human Performance Center and taking a look at it. So yes, I've been talking to our Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps has been involved with this. So we have in TECOM, like you said, we got an office that's working on this. So, but all of us need to understand this and figure out how we can drive it into the Corps. And do you start it at a smaller level, right? I mean, MARSOC is using that same model. But so can we do it at scale is the question that you're asking, right? And where should that start? Probably flight school. I would say the Infantry Marine course, IOC, Infantry Officer course, and then spread from there. Trying to figure that out. That's a good question.
I will say on some of the systems, we're co-located with the Army up at Natick, Massachusetts, where a lot of this work is done. Human performance translates into a myriad of elements and factors. One is, nutrition science that leads to, new rations, MREs, cold weather rations, things like that. PPE and how we've been doing that for about, I'd say, 2 decades at Gruntworks, but scaling it is what's really eluding us, like you're pointing to. We can assess the effectiveness of Marines under stress in realistic situations, but we do need to get that out there in a scaled, and I think a persistent manner, right? Something that tracks you over time, like you're talking about. So we kind of do it on the eaches. Where it really helps us is where we do anthropometric studies that have expanded the bell curve for how we size Marines. We went from 5th to 95th percentile. to now we're accommodating every single Marine, male or female, in the 2 to 98 percentile instead, with some of that work. But across the myriad of factors you're talking about, we can definitely do better.
Hey, can I sound like a Neanderthal for a second here? I think all those systems are super important, just to get data points, right, to try to make us better. But nothing replaces that kind of leadership where you have to inspire young men and women to want to be better versions of themselves. Nothing replaces that. Right. So we can never lose sight of that. So you can get all the metrics you want, but I've seen the most out-of-shape Marine do some heroic shit, unbelievable heroic stuff because he loved the fellow Marine next to him. No other reason. Or you've created an environment where they don't want to let you down. That's called leadership, okay? So let's not ever forget that in our Marine Corps. So we can put all these systems in place, but as long as they enhance, as long as they are additive, but not replacement for just good old-fashioned leadership. My 2 cents.
Yeah, I mean, I brought this up earlier, but putting an NCO with 14 Marines to go through the whole 14 weeks is just what Sparky talked about. I mean, it doesn't matter about all those, but they want to, you can see it in their eyes. They want to make their sergeant proud at the end of that, and you can't replace that.
Major Stone, Canadian Air Force, lead planner for Coalition Virtual Flag the last few years. General Miller did a shout out with that. I'm not sure if one of you gentlemen came to the recent DD Day, but just a quick observation. I think the Marines have added a lot to that coalition exercise. So picking up on the theme for coalition, air, land, air, maritime integration, is there some envisioned coalition large-scale synthetic exercise planned for the Indo-PACOM JOA? Is that too provocative, or is there some initiatives underway in one of the forces to initiate that, obviously, given the threat? Thank you.
I can start the discussion on that. So I just went up for the DV Day for Global 14, Global Wargame 14, which was really unique, I think, this year in the sense that, if the planning guidance says, national planning guidance says that Indo-PACOM is the priority theater, this was really the first time that Admiral Aquilino had his whole staff. I don't think there was a general officer left in Indo-PACOM because they were all in Newport attending the global war. It would have been a great time for our enemies to strike because we were all, eating lobster in Newport. But I think that game really now is going to focus on what's next, right? It was a great war game, showed that we got a lot of work to do, but I think now we've got to get our coalition partners involved because one thing that game showed is it's not the Marine Corps fight, it's not the joint fight, this is a coalition fight in that theater. So I can't answer directly that, hey, now there is going to be a push to get a synthetic kind of, integrated war game going, but I will say it generated a lot of momentum toward something like that. So if anybody else knows something more, please add to it. But I'll say that was interesting to me to go out there and see that.
Sir, Chief Warrant Officer Hall, Success. Just a question about General Rumford. You mentioned big data management, essentially commanders not being able to analyze all the data in a quick method. You gentlemen have all commanded at some level. How do you envision AI supporting that command decision-making process at the tactical level to be able to shape that decision-making down the road? Essentially, right now, you're saying the commanders don't have the time or maybe just the bandwidth to absorb and actually make a usable decision based off that information, so they're reaching back to their training, which is a good thing to lead on. But how do you leverage that AI and technology, not just in training? It would start in training, obviously, to teach them, but also broaching out to the real world down the road to be able to use, so you as commanders can make those decisions in a more informed manner.
Okay, so it isn't so much that I don't think they're capable of making decisions. I think they just got to get comfortable with the systems. So what we're doing, what we are doing out in 29 Palms is we're doing things for the first time in a lot of places. I mean, so they'd never seen this before. So what we have to catch up with is informing the institution where they start learning this stuff at our service level schools. And so now you feed it back into the Fleet Marine Force from our education command. But we're doing the opposite right now. There's too much learning occurring on the desert floor out there. So it's just the stage we're in. So eventually they're going to get comfortable with these systems. These are very capable commanders. I just think right now we're throwing a lot at them, and we're capturing a lot of data ourselves. We're informing the institution. They're going to put it in the curriculum, you know, at our expedition warfare school, command and staff, our entry-level schools, things of that nature. And then when they come out, they're going to have more confidence in the systems. We'll give them the repetitions, and then they can take all these data points in order to make the proper decision, or the most informed decision they can make. That's where we're going with it. So the problems we're seeing now, I think, are just the stage we're in. You know, and there's only a few data points we've had with these commanders. As we throw more at them, you know, and we see what they are struggling with, that's when part of our job is to inform the institution. We give it back to them, and then they start putting it in their curriculum, so we're teaching it early, so all that learning isn't happening right there at 29 Palms. Does that help?
You guys are having some great questions, so you're making my life pretty easy up here, so keep going. There you go.
Yes, Devin Blows with LSI. For General Basajin, with TCOM becoming a 3-star command, do you see their role in the development and procurement of training systems changing at all, especially as you're looking to pivot training capabilities to be organic or inherent in a platform rolling out by post-development of that training capability?
You want to speak for TCOM?
I'm happy to. But I mean, you know, it's funny you say that, but you now have a lieutenant general that provides that, you know, very intimate and close advice to the Commandant of the Marine Corps, who's paying attention to it, commensurate with that prioritization that we talked about. At the Marine Requirements Oversight Council at the MROC, that's pretty meaningful because it puts TCOM right where it ought to be when we're, you know, on this very subject that we're talking about, you know, on par with all of the other warfighting domains that are at issue here today, where they all come together, right?
General
Reps and
Officer,
sets.
right back there.
But that's my view on it. Sir, I defer to you if you think that's effective.
From a point of view of being particularly very interested in this topic, I think this is the Commandant's vote that he recognizes, you know, his 3 Title 10 responsibilities and the imperative. So by pulling a 3-star at this level, as AJ pointed out, so that I can advocate for training systems at the MROC on peer level par with organize and equip, I think puts our Marine Corps in a much better situation moving forward. Previous to this, as many of you are well aware, TCOM was nested underneath the Grand Widget Maker at MCET, CD&I. So when you're trying to compare a calculator that will spit out what is the return on investment for investing in a training system, it sometimes has subjective measures versus an RCO that might actually generate 27.2% greater lethality in the hands of a Marine rifleman, infantryman. It was hard to compete. We are now in a position to actually, again, start pushing requirements and start defining what we expect out of these requirements at a completely different level. You know, AJ and I were actually talking prior to walking in the room about just what you're talking about. How do we better enable a process now as a 3-star that works from TCOM through CD&I right to Mark IV Syscom to then start developing? I think we're missing out when we wait until, you know, as Walt pointed out the other day, we get to a milestone further down the road to actually start considering the .mil-PF and where training systems come in. Probably need to look at that possibly as a KTP on some of the systems that we push out. And if it's not affordable, it can't be baked in early, and that needs to actually be a senior level decision. We're going to push that off and make a, as the Commandant pointed out, a less than desirable bolt-on for later. But having a 3-star in this position, I think, gives the Commandant the agility to be able to do that. So thanks for the question.
We got a seat up here if you want to.
You have to go put your alphas on. No, you got,
That was General Marion, so for those who didn't know. So he was on the senior leader panel yesterday, and we thank you for it.
Gentlemen, there's been a lot of discussion about interoperability today. Interoperability relies on a set of common standards so people can talk together. Is there any effort in the Marine Corps right now to implement force-wide data and communication standards so everybody can talk?
Okay, you want to answer that
Yeah,
question?
Joe.
Joe Bromseo says, so I'd say it is actually at a joint level with JIC2. Another Marine General, General Crowd, is enforcing an open standard model. This magical thing called APIs that we should use, we have decades and decades of
Deem
proprietary
sense.
systems, was already referred to previously, that have hamstrung our ability for our systems to interoperate. And industry is responsible for that. Let's face it, okay? They built those proprietary systems, they own the IP behind it, not internet protocol, intellectual property, because it's profit driven. There's no profit in making a system that can talk to everybody. So we have to enforce that standard. It's going to be done at the joint level, and that is occurring right now out of the J6. So short answer.
Thanks.
So I have a question, if that could be allowed. The Army put in there was a lot of bling and emphasis around IVAS and this, new capabilities, HoloLens kind of stuff. And I think it's sort of on a little bit of a hold, but it did put out, a fairly big chunk of cash, which is going to bait a lot of industry into that world. And my question is, how does the Marine Corps view that kind of a system? And, I could see it being scary in that it requires a lot of data. It's got to be interoperable with with the rest of the systems, and it may fail, at some point. But what do you all think about that sort of thing?
Sure. So I can start us off. I've gone to multiple soldier demonstrations where the Marine Corps has actually participated with platoon-sized elements that have participated in the evaluations along with soldiers of IVAS at intermediate soldier touch points. I've walked the ground with Deputy Commandant for Capabilities Development and Integration at Fort Pickett and gotten feedback, firsthand from Marines, corporals, staff sergeants, and the like that we've talked about here today. There's guarded optimism for systems like that. I will tell you that things like interoperability standards and the need for networking is the long pole in the tent when you look at human systems interfaces that are designed to network a Marine rifle squad. And those dependencies they're great in a lab, they're great on a PowerPoint slide. It's different when you immerse that in the operational realism of line of sight limitations, or worse yet, detail environments that we're planning for. So we're looking at that. A capability that was available to us right here and now was a Squad Bino NVG, and there's elements of that that are very much necessary. But we're watching it and working it very closely down the road with the Army on IVAS.
Okay. Good. Looks for hands. So the next question I have is, I have a house that's 20 miles north of Camp Lejeune, and I have the wonderful opportunity to see the fleet show up and expel, the Blue Force onto the beach. And associated with that, because I know it's coming, is the ground starts to shake because of all of the explosions. There's just all day long explosions going on, and I can hear them like they're next door. So the question I have is...
Sound of freedom.
Sound of freedom, and we're not complaining. My dog complains, but the question I have is that obviously you all are heavily engaged, believing in reality, putting Marines under stress within a real environment. But to what degree can some of that be taken into a simulated world? Is there opportunities there, or is this sort of the way we're going to do it?
We got to do both. I mean, that was the idea behind General Mattis when he developed the infantry immersion training. It's expensive, right, with role players and all. But in 2007, he had that built. He had Stegall Studios come up and build it in 29 Palms. I mean, in Camp Pendleton in 07. Not the Karate Man Stegall, but actually he made porn movies. Actually, that guy did. General Mattis. But we've been doing it for years with the aviation, and we're just now starting to do it with the ground element. So it's got to do both. You got to have simulation, but there's nothing that can ever take back from those loud explosions and dirt flying in your face. So we got to figure out the balance as we move forward, particularly with our systems, with the rockets and missiles and the distance that we're going to need to be able to shoot the UAVs like Sparky talked about, electronic warfare and the like, cyber. How do you do all that live? And
You got to be able to replicate the enemy.
Yeah.
You know, and that you can only do that virtually.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
So.
unless you do force on force, and that's non-live fire. So if you're doing live fire, you got to be able to replicate the enemy.
Yeah.
And how do we do that?
Any other questions from the audience?
Admiral, I can take that
Okay,
one
go
step
ahead.
further too, because I know
Well,
you're
sure.
focused on the ground side there, but you know, on the aviation side, we're struggling with that as well, right? We're making 5th-gen fighters. We're already looking at the next thing, and yet our ranges haven't got any bigger. Our weapons are ranging much further, but our ranges haven't got any bigger, and adversary air just gets more and more expensive, right? To have an actual live adversary that you're going against. And it's really expensive if you want that to match your 5th-gen fighter, right? So, I mean, right now we have our 5th-gen fighters going against F-5s. It's really not replicating the threat that we're planning on going against. So, I've had people ask me, you know, why do you even need to train at all in the aircraft? You know, sims are getting so good. You have to still have that feeling of being in the aircraft, understand how your aircraft is going to work when it's in the air. But we are going to do more and more in the sim just because you need the reps and sets against the higher threat that you just we can't do out at 29 Palms anymore, and there's very few ranges that we are going to be able to operate in and get that kind of training.
Yeah, on the ground side, we are changing some of our ranges. I mean, Camp Lejeune, we've built a number of ranges down there that take the trackless robots, right, which are as realistic in a live fire for a squad, platoon, company that you can do. I've shot at bad guys, like I said, a lot, and they all were running and they're moving. So we,
running?
yeah, I ran some too. Got 2 fake hips from jumping off a building, so running. So we are doing some of that. Not enough yet, but again, got to do both. We got to figure out how to do both.
So the last question I have is, when I was in Iraq on General Frank's staff, we had command centers where we had all the UAV video and we could see what was going on. And unfortunately, there were situations where we could see things, but we couldn't communicate with the Marine or the soldier on the ground. And how have we improved since then in being able to coordinate and give those there in danger the right information?
So Dale and I had the good fortune here, if it was 18 to 19, we were commanding generals, and he was in Afghanistan, I was in Iraq, and we lived by the UAS, and I will tell you, since then it's gotten tremendously better. So we just want you to communicate to the members on the ground via the chain of command. Okay, so you don't just get to talk to people on the ground because you see something. So now we're just better at coordinating the assets that we have. And as these UASs have developed and now they're become more lethal themselves, we now essentially put them on the ATO, and then we divvy them out. You have to request them, we divvy them out to people. But if you're going anything at the highest levels where you want to send it down to our command, we had a command center where we could strike immediately. We could close that kill chain so fast, unlike anything we've ever seen before. And we're constantly working on that kill chain, and we're working on it like battle drills. And we're working on closing that kill chain in a multi-domain environment and some of the things that we're working on. We're also working on affecting the enemy's kill chain, the way we can do it. So those things, UASs are vitally important. They make aviators so nervous, okay? But it's okay, we still need aviators. But these UASs, we've just come a long way then, sir, since that time with General Franks's.
Great.
team.
Let me throw in one thing. So when we got back 10 months in Afghanistan, and to do a brief of what we did, we kind of used EABO for our brief. So what we did is we had 7 different locations where we had Marines stationed with Afghan soldiers, and everything around it was water, no go. Didn't have a way to move on it, right? So, and you kind of showed nodes, which is kind of what we're going to try to do with EABO. And how would you do that? And how would you connect those nodes, talk, be able to use different systems to kill the bad guy? It was a unique way that Blair Sokol, Colonel Sokol, came up with to explain what we were doing for the last 10 months over there. So we're thinking about how to do better with it. We've been with real operations, but still got ways to go.
Yes, sir. Okay, I'm going to give you one last chance before we wrap up. In the back.
That question kind of started off with what General Alford started at the beginning. When you're young, you probably don't think about a cell phone. And you train how you fight. Most of the enemy that we find out there on the battlefield has a cell phone. So it's good to hear that when a Marine shows up at MCT or his entry level training in flight school, that Marine's getting a tablet and can actually utilize that technology for 21st century learning. But on the same thing, something like common handheld or Nano or kill switch or whatever device where we got multiple places where we're giving them a device. You're able to think how far are we away from giving that Marine that device at the right time and place, whether it's MCT, TBS, IOC, flight school, whatever it is, that they can use for 21st century learning, then that transitions over to the battlefield. Because if you're really going to get to that 21st century learning, it may be incremental. It may not be revolutionary, it may be evolutionary, in that we give them a device that isn't a tactical device, but eventually we get to a device that's used in garrison and on the battlefield. How far out are we from that? And it's kind of like a training thing and a SysCom thing.
Yeah,
How far are we out from that? Are you guys working on that?
Yeah, we haven't got to the point where we're issuing a Marine a cell phone and then it's his or hers. That's what you're kind of talking about. That's what we should probably do, right? I mean, we get to the point where it's part of your kit, right? Is you get a cell phone with certain apps and stuff, and a lot of that on there is to do decision-making, tactical decision games, war games, and so forth as well, where they can fight each other in the barracks, through games. You got to have the right. We're working hard with getting Wi-Fi across the enterprise to do that. We hadn't gotten to the point where we can afford to give every Marine a device yet, but probably need to.
I can add something too.
Yep.
I think we have to have some perspective, right? So I'll give you a little perspective on this. I mean, it was about 2011, the first time an iPad showed up in an assault aircraft. So I mean, for industry, that's like, oh my God, that was like 100 years ago. For the Marine Corps, that wasn't that long ago. I mean, so we went from the very first kind of bootleg, smart pilot figuring out that, hey, I can carry either 50 pounds of pubs to my aircraft or I can maybe have an iPad, to now we have, everybody launches with an iPad. So we're going to get there. I mean, so the next step is that Marine gets that iPad or whatever the device is now in flight school, loaded, with the space there for the sensitive, secret, compartmentalized stuff that will go on once he hits the fleet. But he's already learning that system, right? So we're almost there when it comes to that. But that's how the Marine Corps moves, right? I mean, you can't bring anything into that first pilot that did that got his ass in trouble because that was not a NAVAIR approved device in the aircraft. And it took about 3 years to get NAVAIR to catch up to the fact that, hey, this is the future and you got to figure this shit out.
Whether we're fighting insurgents or near-peer competitors, they're going to have that capability.
Yep.
They're going to be faster than we are.
That's right.
I agree.
That's right.
We also used it against them to kill a lot of them.
Yeah, and the other piece too is, I mean, we, all of that has to then be secure in a network. So as fast as we want to move on that, you can't let the enemy turn your own device against you because we didn't have it at the right security level.
I'll end by saying something like, it's a great idea. I think it's a great idea. We're doing some things to demonstrate that we're moving in that direction, like the common handheld, for example, where there's a refresh rate built in and financed. Vehicles, the ultralight tactical vehicles are consciously going to be replaced. And I'm talking within, a 5-year time frame, as opposed to the typical Marine Corps cycle, which is like 3 decades. So we're actually executing acquisition strategies in line with, lower cost but quickly expensed pieces of hardware like that. So I think it's a great idea. We'll definitely take some of that back and see how widespread and prolific we can make that. That's a good point.
Okay, so unfortunately, we're out of time, and I know everybody wants to go to lunch, but not that that's any more important than this, but not a shy audience and certainly not a shy panel, and I really appreciate that. This has been a great content-filled hour and a half, and I applaud that, and I really appreciate it. So thank you for being here. So help me thank our panel.
Thanks, AJ. Good stuff, Rush.